Thanks for staying with us here on Mirror Now. Many would have hoped that the Bihar results would have given us a quick verdict, a clear verdict, and perhaps the IPL grand finale would have been a cliffhanger, but it's the other way around. And now we're looking at a tight race between the NDA and the Mahagathbandhan continuing in Bihar as the counting day really extends to midnight and perhaps longer. The last leg of counting is underway in several constituencies, but the NDA is leading with the Mahagathbandhan over Mahagathbandhan. NDA, in fact, is leading in 123 seats. Some of them have converted into wins already. Mahagathbandhan 111 as we speak. Election Commission has declared results for 142 seats out of the 243. So NDA, in fact, has 172, of which BJP is actually 1 in 39, JDU in 27, VIP in 4, and HAM in 2 seats. And it's leading in 51 seats. Mahagathbandhan has won 44 seats, RJD actually winning a bigger chunk of that. AIMIM has won 3 seats and is leading in 2, so they're hoping to get 5 in their kitty. Let's go across to Ayushman, who's been non-stop reporting for us live from Patna, from various locations. Started off from Tejasvi's residence, moved to the BJP office, JDU office, then landed at Nitish's residence. Ayushman, where are you now?
Tanvi, we are standing outside Chief Minister Nitish Kumar's residence only, inside the meeting which was going on. The leaders haven't yet come out, and because it is senior BJP leadership which is there inside, the future prospect is to be discussed. What will happen from here on? Because if you see, even if this cliffhanger goes on, the close contested battle, the number is with NDA. So what will happen tomorrow? That remains a bigger question. Will Nitish Kumar be given the chief ministership? BJP has time and again clarified that they will be giving Nitish the chief ministership, even the number goes up. Now that is clearly clear that more than 70 seats are coming to BJP, and it will be very important to see what behind me is happening. You can see the BJP leaders are coming out right now, and you can see those media cavalcade trying to get a comment from BJP's Bhupendra Yadav, who went to meet Nitish Kumar. But as we know, the BJP's nature, they don't speak out in open. You can see here, Tanvi, Bhupendra Yadav, Mangal Pandey, there in that vehicle he went by, and over 3 hours of meeting that took place, Tanvi, here in this Nitish Kumar's residence. It will be very important to note, right beside me is governor's residence, just a few steps away. Whether the BJP will go and approach the governor claiming stake to form the government, that remains a bigger question. But for now, RJD has maintained the record for being the single largest party as of now. But Nitish Kumar said to become the chief minister for once more, Tanvi.
Well, Ayushman, clearly they're reporting non-stop for us now for days together, and the exhaustion now visible. Nobody, I think, expected this kind of a cliffhanger going up to the midnight. He's also the one who tracks the Election Commission for us, so he's also been tracking all of those updates as well. Ayushman, thanks so much for getting us that update from Nitish's residence. Let's get to the big point now as these numbers emerge. The RJD and, in fact, the rest of the Mahagathbandhan is now alleging foul play in the counting process. So an RJD-led delegation visited the Election Commission office alleging foul play. The RJD claims that the Grand Alliance has actually already won in 119 seats, and that the election officials are refusing to give the certificate confirming their victory. RJD leader Manoj Jha said that they don't trust the district administration and added that the EC had assured to look into the opposition's complaints. Meanwhile, supporters of the RJD also held a demonstration outside the party leader and former Chief Minister Rabdi Devi's residence. And this protest was, of course, against Nitish Kumar for allegedly influencing the counting of votes.
2 दर्जन सीट ऐसी है जो माननीय चुनाव आयोग को हमने बताया कि 2 दर्जन सीटों में हेराफेरी की कोशिश शाम 5 बजे के बाद शुरू की हुई है और मुख्यमंत्री कार्यालय से हुई है। इससे बड़ा प्रूफ क्या हो सकता है? कि पूरे दिन हम लीड करते रहें और कैंडिडेट को ये कह दिया जाए कि आप बैठिए, अब सर्टिफिकेट देने का वक्त है, और अचानक आके कहा जाए कि ना साहब रीपोल हुआ और रिकाउंटिंग हुई और आप 56 वोट से हार गए। और कमाल की बात है, जहां वो रिकाउंटिंग चाह रहे हैं वहां रिकाउंटिंग मिल रही है, जहां हम रिकाउंटिंग चाह रहे हैं वहां रिकाउंटिंग नहीं मिल रही है।
Well, the Election Commission addressed a news briefing shortly after RJD made this allegation and went and met the Election Commission. EC has, of course, refuted all of these allegations of foul play and said that all the information is available in public domain. It's an extremely transparent process. EC also added the 146 seats have been declared and in 97 trends have already been made public.
निर्वाचन की समस्त प्रक्रियाओं को पूरी तरह से ठीक ढंग से समझ के उस तरह से ये मतगणना का कार्य करा रही है। आयोग कभी भी किसी के दबाव में नहीं रहा है और जो भी प्रक्रियाएं हैं, पहले भी जैसा कहा है कि पूरी प्रोसीजर को फॉलो करके उसमें नेचुरल कोर्स में जो भी टाइम लग रहा है उस पर ये चुनाव के रिजल्ट का कार्य किया जाएगा।
Well, let me also bring in our managing editor, Vinay Tiwari, who's with me on this broadcast. Vinay, so essentially, just for our viewers to understand again, it's not the usual EVM tampering charge. This time, the Mahagathbandhan and the opposition has come up with a new kind of a controversy.
Yes, and their specific allegation seems to be on the process the returning officers, have employed or deployed in certain constituencies. I think we are still not very sure of the specificity of the charges that they are mentioning because they are saying different things. But to put it very simply, one of the charge has been answered by the Election Commission, which has held 3 briefings, and in the 3rd briefing they did specify that, where they said that there is a situation where if the margin of the victory of a candidate is less than the number of postal ballots that have been rejected, then the returning officer is absolutely mandated to recount all the postal ballots that have been rejected first, because remember, the postal ballots are counted first. And that's the reason they have given for holding back the results in a few seats. Now, we don't know whether the complaint by the RJD and the Congress and the left is specific to that seat that the Election Commission was referring to, but they've certainly given that as an example. Now, that's where it seems to be boiling down to. Also remember that the EVM counting, and I think this viewers must know this, that the counting process in Indian elections happens in the presence of election agents where all parties are allowed to be present, physically present, and when the RO actually presses the master switch and notes down the tally that is shown up on the master display, it's written down in a form that is signed by the RO, and the election agents can countersign it. So every round this exercise is repeated, and election agents are authorized and empowered to raise objections if they find a problem in any of the rounds. So in some ways, the complaints may or may not add up. But yes, the Election Commission has given an answer for one very clear specific issue that the RJD seems to have raised.
And I just want to add that while RJD and specifically Manoj Jha is the one who's leading this entire charge and the series of allegations, even the left and the Congress have been quick to add on to it, and Randeep Surjewala in fact has put out a series of tweets giving examples of different constituencies where they allege, but all of it is really based on hearsay of their candidates claiming that we were winning and now we're not being given the certificate, and suddenly the results have turned turned over on the head and now we are losing. These would be difficult charges to prove. At max, what they can seek from the Election Commission is to re-verify the tabulation that has been done to see if the correct entries have been made basis what the EVM machines have given as the result. Isn't it, Vinay?
Absolutely. And I think if they are claiming a sudden reversal of what they were told, then they are probably resorting to third-hand or fourth-hand or second-hand information. I think the bottom line is that every eligible candidate whose name is on the EVM machine is entitled to an election agent inside the counting center. They are given legitimate passes by the Election Commission and who can be physically present. So if there was something wrong going on at any stage during the counting, the election agents should have raised an official complaint, and they are allowed to make the official complaint. In fact, in a lot of cases, the counting is halted when an election agent raises a complaint. I mean, we've seen that happening in several elections in the past. In Madhya Pradesh, that's happened multiple times, where objections were raised by election agent of a candidate, and the counting was indeed halted till the problem was rectified to the satisfaction of all. So it's a fairly transparent process. The only thing is whether the election agents were present at all when all this was happening, or they were just not present and somebody else told them about this, is something we don't know. In fact, ironically, Tanvi, in Indian elections, even the candidate is allowed to be inside a counting station. I mean, they are bona fide candidates are supposed to be, I mean, they are allowed to be inside. Some of them choose to be, some of them don't choose to be, but they're indeed allowed. And it can happen, and it should happen, and it always happens in front of them if they so decide.
Yeah, but such are the times, Vinay, from Bihar to even United States, where simple processes, extremely transparent processes are being questioned. The entire integrity of the process being attacked. Even in United States, unfortunately, I mean, we didn't think we would be drawing these parallels again and again, but similar allegations were made, where they even went on to the point of saying that our guys are not being allowed, our poll observers are not being allowed anywhere near the polling stations and the counting stations. When the competition gets really close, then in desperation, sometimes you see these kind of allegations being made. At least, the opposition has learned that the EVM charge doesn't hold water anymore.
Yeah, funnily enough, just a few days back, we were actually, feeling a little more elated and, confident about the fact that our counting processes are way more smooth and they don't get challenged. I mean, we were actually saying that there is a lot of trouble that can happen at a polling station, but once the counting happens, it runs fairly smoothly. Yeah. Little did we know that 3 days, 4 days later, the joke will be on us. I mean, now you have a situation where the parties which are actually currently trailing will raise objections over the manner in which the Election Commission is now declaring results. And I'm very sure, and in fact, in hindsight, I now realize, Tanvi, that the fact that the Election Commission chose to do 3 press conferences, which is very unusual on a counting day, was possibly good, because that allows some amount of transparency and also allows the ability for us to ask questions to the Election Commission, and they did take questions. And
you're cognizant to, the issues that are being raised, the questions that are being asked, and you're responsive and immediately, taking steps to clear those doubts, which always works. So that's something that we must appreciate the Election Commission. We would have, of course, appreciated a prior briefing so that we didn't have this confusion to begin with. But we also, on Mirror Now earlier, spoke with former Chief Election Commissioner, Dr. SY Quraishi, on the delay in counting and the allegations that are being made by the Mahagathbandhan. Here's an excerpt of that conversation. The allegations that are being made by the Mahagathbandhan is that there is an intentional delay in announcing the results where they have won in a few places to give the benefit to the other side. But what the Election Commission is saying repeatedly is that the delays are due to the COVID protocols that have been put in place and verification processes that have to be done. If you can help our viewers understand, Mr. Quraishi, of what's going on in these last 10% of counting votes.
For the first time, Election Commission has been coming out with a press conference, and not one, not twice, but 3 times on the day of counting. We never did this before. And as early as 1:30, the CEO of Bihar had made it very clear that because of COVID, because of the 50% increase in the number of polling stations and the reduction of tables in the counting hall, the results will be delayed. And it had indicated that it will go up to late into the night, and we presume that it will be around midnight. And they repeated this at 6 o'clock press conference. So this delay was to be expected. And earlier, the results will be out in 20-25 rounds. In this case, they made it clear that in some constituencies, there will be 50 rounds. Now, and every round takes half an hour. So if you calculate, it does take time. So this delay was expected, and EC had made it very clear, and repeatedly. So throughout the day, they have made it clear.
So let me then get to the specifics. The specific charge by the RJD and also other allies of the Mahagathbandhan is that they know their candidate has won. The results on ground make it very clear. But the Election Commission's returning officer is just delaying giving the returning certificate. Now, does that really leave space for any kind of foul play, or is it simply a process that will get done later, if not sooner?
You get to know the result because as the counting is being done, and remember, even if there are 50 rounds, after every round, the result is declared. and the political party agent have to sign that result. So if a result is fine up to 49 rounds, what can go wrong after the 50th round? And secondly, a news channel announcing a result and going back on it after half an hour is the child's play. It happens all the time. But Election Commission, once it announces, so it cannot go back. Therefore, it has to make sure that all documents are perfect. And it's basically the documentation which takes time, and every paper in order, and then only it signs, the RO signs, and then he hands it over to the winning candidate and the losing candidate as well.
Would it have been helpful perhaps for everybody, including the viewers, the media, the political parties, the candidates, had the Election Commission perhaps briefed us about this earlier? I mean, there were COVID protocols in place, there were additional polling stations, there were additional EVM machines that we use. Surely they would have known that it would take longer today than to leave space for this kind of an unnecessary controversy.
No, that's what I said. I heard the press conference, both the press conferences at 1:30 and 6 o'clock. They said it very specifically because of the COVID protocol, because of the number of polling booths having increased by 50%, because of the counting tables getting reduced from 14 to 7 in a hall. So, and there will be delay every time, every 2 minutes. This is what they were saying, that there will be delay. And it will go late into the night. They said it in all three presses.
No, Mr. Quraishi, there were two very specific questions. You're right that they said so very clearly and we heard that. I think the question was that because we knew that the number of EVMs is 60% higher than, say, in any previous election because of COVID norms, should we not have had more counting stations or maybe even more polling counting staff on duty that could have hastened up this process?
Well, they could, that was, of course, very doable. They could have done that. But, if you have more number of halls, more number of people, to that extent, the supervision gets a little compromised. And Election Commission, in its judgment, had come to the conclusion. So how does it matter if it is delayed by a few hours, so long as the result is credible, the procedure that is followed is accurate and trustworthy?
So, Mr. Quraishi, just one other question, and this is because, you're the best person actually to explain to our viewers the process, and correct me if I'm getting the process wrong. In the EVM counting process, once the EVMs are pressed, the RO actually notes down the tabulated numbers in front of every candidate and then signs the form after every round. Now, that means that once he has finished signing the forms for each round, irrespective of whether the certificate has been given or not, the result really cannot be tampered or altered with. Is that a correct understanding?
Absolutely. And that is exactly what I said. As I said, suppose there are 50 rounds, and in some cases there are going to be 50 rounds. After every round, the result is declared. There was a time when the result will be held back till the last. Now, in this case, if after every round, result is announced and signed and given, and every party agent signs the receipt of that result, that he has seen this result. So where can we, after 49 rounds, all have gone well, no complaint, no problem. How can the result get altered after the 50th round? Maximum the dispute can be about the last round. But the 49 rounds have gone fine, uncontested, so that is final.
Well, there you go, and that shouldn't really leave too much space for doubt in anybody's mind, irrespective of what the Mahagathbandhan is alleging right now. But let's also address one other crucial part of what happened on Tuesday. As the counting began, usually you would see things could get clearer by 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. If the contest is really close, then it takes slightly longer. But by afternoon, we usually have a sense of who's going to be winning the election. On Tuesday, we actually figured by afternoon, by 12 noon and 1 p.m., that the counting was progressing very, very slowly, and that only 10% votes had been counted. And so then we turned towards the Election Commission, who came out to explain to us why there had been a delay and why the process was so slow, essentially because of the COVID protocols and because there was elaborate setup for voting when the voting was held, to ensure there is social distancing, to ensure that proper health and hygiene standards are followed. That also meant additional EVM machines, additional polling stations and polling booths, and thereby it just meant a lot more elaborate process for the counting. So that's essentially what Election Commission's first news briefing was. Vinay, if I could just bring you in on this aspect. The fact that because they wanted to ensure social distancing, it is true that there's a limited number of people in each polling station from 1,500 to 1,000, and thereby they had to add those many. And because the process for counting really depends on each of these segments, the more the segments, the longer it's going to take for the process to be done.
Yes, and just to quantify that so that the viewers get a better idea of how the difference panned out in a regular election, which was possibly held in a non-COVID era, the number of rounds in, say, an election like Bihar would have been about maybe between 18 and 25 at best. If there was a larger constituency, there would have been possibly 25 rounds and a smaller one would have 18. But in this election, the rounds crossed sometimes 50. In fact, the Election Commission actually specifically mentioned it. In certain cases, there were more than 50 rounds that had to be done, to actually finish the counting. And remember, every round essentially means that every EVM, once the polling is over, is actually sealed in a cloth which is called marquee, and it is then, the lark is put on it as a seal. And that has to be signed by the returning officers. Now, once the counting begins, each machine has to be opened. The seal has to be opened in front of the election agents, and then the process begins. So that it does slow it down. And the more the number of EVMs deployed for an election, the longer it will take for them to actually count each one of them, and then to fill up the tabulation forms, and then add all of them up, and then declare the result. And remember, there is also an added pressure now of the VVPAT trail, which is now mandatory in a defined percentage of the constituencies in a particular state. So that also delays it, like we saw in the Madhya Pradesh election. But I think here the complication became worse because the contest between the two sides has been much closer.
Correct. And so a combination of those has kind of given the space to the opposition to start creating doubts in the minds of people and raising these questions. But otherwise, we could have just waited for Election Commission and the officials to finish the counting in all of these constituencies and give us the results as we speak. And not surprisingly, you can see that it's tilting in the favor of NDA. NDA is winning in 124 constituencies, but the Mahagathbandhan is now at 111. So that gap has really increased. And if you really look at individual party performances, we can see the BJP Plus, which is BJP along with them VIP, which has performed well for them, and that gamble has paid off. They have together 158, they're leading in 18, so roughly about 76 is what BJP Plus tally stands at, just about the same as the RJD's tally. RJD is 1 in 61 and they're leading in 15. But it's just also a very quick point on the performance part of it. As the numbers stand right now, and they will keep changing a little bit more through the night, both BJP plus VIP and RJD, on the other hand, stand at 76. So one of them would end up emerging as a single largest party, and either which ways, that's a big change for Bihar.
Yes, I mean, if you remove VIP and HAM, then technically RJD would be the single largest party, because those, the additional seats are coming from the sub-alliances, so to speak. So technically, yes, RJD has ended up as the second largest, as the largest party. But I think the BJP will possibly draw a lot of solace from their performance, because we've been talking about it through the day. That this particular performance today will go down as a bit of a shift in Bihar's electoral politics. Currently, you may not see any change in the leadership or any other major shock that may happen immediately, but it is almost certain that Bihar's politics is set to undergo a big change, with the BJP muscling their way in and occupying center stage, something that they've long wanted to do in a state like Bihar.
Very quickly, Vinay, also, if it does end up being a closer contest, as is being predicted, as the single largest party, does the RJD have an upper hand?
No. So in this case, in fact, that's a very interesting question. Now this will again, I mean, if at all it becomes any closer than this, the governor's role becomes important, but there are two interpretations of it. Technically, in a pre-poll alliance, the governor should call a formal pre-poll alliance first.
Yes.
Because if there was no alliance,
all the conversations from Maharashtra elections are coming back to us now.
Absolutely. But
we'll
then we know there have been exceptions.
We'll probably have to brush up on that as we head into Wednesday and wait for what happens next. But completely out of time on this special edition. It's been a long and hectic but extremely exciting day. We wait to watch what happens now tomorrow. Thank you so much for being with us.